I never thought size mattered. Not once in my marriage did I stop to compare, to wonder if my husband was lacking in any way. He was average, and that was okay. I loved him for his kindness, his reliability, the way he always made me feel safe. Our love wasn't built on lust alone. It was deeper, stronger. Or so I thought. It started as harmless girl talk, just laughter over drinks with my friends. We had a habit of oversharing, of diving into topics no one should discuss in public. That night, the conversation turned to men, to their skills, their bodies. And then, the whispers began. Trust me, once you've had bigger, you can never go back. I didn't believe it either until I tried. Girl, you're missing out. They teased, they giggled, and at first, I laughed with them. It was silly, right? Just talk. But as the night wore on, their stories became more detailed, their experiences more vivid. They painted pictures with their words, descriptions so raw and unapologetic that I found myself listening more intently than I should have. One of my closest friends, Lisa, leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You love your husband, I get it. But sometimes we don't know what we're missing until we have it. I rolled my eyes, sipping my wine, pretending her words didn't burrow their way into my thoughts. I'm happy, I said, firm but casual. Size doesn't matter if the love is there. She smirked. That's what I used to think too. That should have been the end of it. I should have walked away from that night, let the words fade into meaningless chatter. But instead, they lingered. They followed me home, echoed in my mind as I lay beside my husband. As he slept peacefully next to me, I found myself wondering for the first time, what if they were right? At first, it was just a thought, a fleeting curiosity. But curiosity has a way of growing, spreading like an itch that refuses to be ignored. The next time I was at the gym, I noticed the men around me differently. Broad shoulders, strong arms, confident strides. I never paid attention before. But now my mind whispered questions I never used to ask. Were they bigger? Would it feel different? Would I even care? I shook off the thoughts, telling myself I was being ridiculous. I loved my husband. I was happy, but the whispers didn't stop. And deep down, something inside me had already begun to shift. The curiosity that had been planted in my mind refused to fade. It grew stronger, creeping into my thoughts when I least expected it. I noticed men in a way I never had before. At the grocery store, at the gym, even on my social media feed, I was suddenly hyper-aware of bodies, of presence, of confidence. Lisa's words played over and over in my head. Sometimes we don't know what we're missing until we have it. What if I really didn't know? What if I had spent my entire life settling for something less? Then, one night, temptation arrived. It was at a mutual friend's party, a casual gathering with music, drinks, and laughter. That's when I saw him. He was tall, broad, and exuded a quiet confidence that made him impossible to ignore. He noticed me too. It started with a simple conversation, polite and innocent. But there was something in his eyes, a knowing look, as if he could see the thoughts I was trying to suppress. He leaned in slightly when he spoke, his deep voice sending an unexpected thrill down my spine. I felt it in my stomach, a dangerous kind of excitement. I told myself it was nothing. A little flirtation. A little fun. But deep inside, I knew better. I was testing the waters, seeing how far I could go before pulling back. Then, He touched my arm, just a casual brush, but it sent a jolt through my body. I should have walked away. Instead, I smiled. That night, as I lay in bed next to my husband, my heart raced for a different reason. The seed of doubt had blossomed into full temptation. And for the first time in my marriage, I wasn't sure I wanted to resist. Temptation is a dangerous thing. It starts as a whisper, a fleeting thought, but once it takes hold, it becomes a storm, relentless, unforgiving. I told myself it was just flirting, that it was innocent, that I could stop anytime I wanted. But deep down, I knew I had already crossed a line. The opportunity presented itself so easily, almost as if fate had planned it. A business trip for my husband. A text from him, the man from the party, just checking in, seeing if I wanted to grab a drink. It was harmless, wasn't it? Just a drink. Just conversation. I told myself I wouldn't go. But as the night stretched on, loneliness crept in and curiosity won. I met him at a bar downtown, dimly lit, the air thick with possibility. We talked. We laughed. And when he leaned in, his lips inches from mine, I didn't move away. I let it happen. The moment his lips touched mine, the world around me faded. It was different, intense, urgent. His hands were firm, demanding, nothing like the gentle touch I had grown used to. One kiss led to another. And then we were in his hotel room. The anticipation was unbearable. The moment of truth. Would it really be different? Would it be better? And then I knew. Pleasure unlike anything I had ever experienced crashed over me. Every whispered conversation, every teasing remark from my friends suddenly made sense. I had never known what I was missing until now. I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. If you're deep into this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more confessions like this. I told myself it was a one-time mistake, that I would never do it again. But the moment I got home, I realized something had shifted inside me. My husband kissed me, held me, whispered he had missed me, but it wasn't the same. My body craved something else. Someone else. The fire that had been ignited refused to be put out. That night, as I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, my mind was nowhere near my marriage. My body still tingled from the memories of another man's touch, his presence, the way he made me feel like I was experiencing something new for the first time. The thrill, the rush, the pure intensity of it, it haunted me. The next morning, I promised myself that it had to end. I avoided my phone, deleted messages before I could read them, and swore I would put all of this behind me. My marriage was worth more. My husband was a good man. I couldn't destroy what we had built over one reckless night. But temptation is a beast that doesn't sleep. A message came through, and though I fought the urge to read it, I lost the battle. I can't stop thinking about you. That was all it took. A single sentence. My fingers hovered over the screen, my heart pounding. I should have ignored it. I should have deleted it, moved on, saved myself. But I didn't. Neither can I. The words left me before I could think, before logic could intervene. It was as if something inside me had already decided, and my body was simply following its command. The moment the message was sent, my fate was sealed. What followed was a whirlwind of deception. We started meeting in secret, stolen moments filled with an intensity one had never known before. Every meeting was more reckless, more daring. At first, I thought it was just the thrill of something new, something forbidden. But as time went on, I realized it was more than that. I was addicted. Addicted to the fire. Addicted to the way he made me feel desirable, insatiable, alive. My husband was home every night, loving me in the only way he knew how, but I was no longer the same woman he had married. I had tasted something I never knew I was missing, and now I couldn't let it go. One evening, after another passionate encounter, I sat in my car before heading home, staring at my reflection in the mirror. Who was I becoming? How had I gone from a faithful wife to someone who lied, who betrayed, who risked everything for moments of pleasure? I should have stopped. I should have walked away. But I knew I wouldn't, because the truth was I didn't want to stop. If you're deep into this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more confessions like this. Guilt is a strange thing. It doesn't always come immediately. Sometimes it lingers in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. And when it does, it hits with the weight of 1,000 secrets. I thought I could control it. I believed I could keep my two worlds separate, my marriage, my home, my routine life on one side, and my forbidden desires, my reckless passion on the other. But the walls I had built between them were starting to crack. It began with small things. My husband noticed how distracted I was. He asked me if something was wrong, if I was feeling okay. I told him I was just tired, that work had been stressful. Lies. More lies to cover the ones that came before. But the truth was, my mind was always somewhere else, trapped between the guilt of my betrayal and the craving for more. I should have walked away. I should have chosen my marriage, my husband, my life. But temptation still had its grip on me. One evening, as I was getting dressed to go out with my so-called friends, my husband walked into the room and stood there, watching me. His eyes were filled with something I couldn't quite place: concern, sadness, maybe even suspicion. "You've been different lately," he said softly. Distant. My heart pounded. "I've just been busy. You know how things get." He nodded, but he didn't look convinced. "You still love me, right?" The question caught me off guard. I turned to him, forcing a smile. "Of course I do." But even as I said the words, I wondered if I was lying to him or to myself. I left that night, my heart heavier than before. But instead of going to see my friends, I went to him. To the man who had unlocked something inside me I never knew existed. To the man who had become an addiction I couldn't break. But as I lay in his arms afterward, the weight of what I had done pressed down on me like never before. I couldn't keep living this double life. Something had to give. And I knew, deep down, that I was approaching the breaking point. Days passed, and the guilt only grew stronger. I started to see my husband differently, not as the man I had betrayed, but as the man who had always been there for me. The man who loved me unconditionally. And yet, I had taken that love and shattered it in the pursuit of something fleeting. One night, as I watched him sleeping beside me, the realization hit me so hard it almost knocked the breath from my lungs. I had made a mistake. A terrible, irreversible mistake. And no amount of passion, no amount of pleasure was worth the pain I was about to cause. I knew what I had to do. I had to confess. If you followed this journey, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real confessions like this. What would you have done in my place?